Star Walker Studios presents Game Master's Journey, your multi-dimensional RPG podcast. Hello, fellow gamer. Welcome to episode 263 of Game Master's Journey. I'm your host, Lex Starwalker. On this show, we discuss the craft and the art of game mastering. I've been running RPGs for over 28 years now, and I produce this show in the hopes that you can benefit from my experience, my triumphs, and my mistakes. Hello, listener GMs. Welcome to episode 263. So glad that you joined me today. Got a great episode for you today. I'm going to be talking about the new Essentials Kit for D&D, which is a great way to get started in the hobby. So if you're wanting to test the waters of playing or running RPGs, or if you have a friend or a family member that you'd like to get into the hobby and you're looking for a great way to get started, this is a great place to start. And we're going to be talking all about that. I'm going to be flying solo today. Brett will be joining me next time. We're going to be returning to our discussion of the Dungeon Master's Guide, and we're going to start talking about Chapter 9 of the Dungeon Master's Guide, which is the Dungeon Master's Toolbox, I believe it's called, and has a lot of variant rules and optional rules and systems for homebrewing your own things, everything from monsters to NPCs to magic items to spells to new player character options, all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of stuff to talk about in Chapter 9. So if you're new to the show, welcome to Game Master's Journey. We've been doing a series of discussion episodes on both the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Player's Handbook, where we go through chapter by chapter and talk about all of the nuggets of goodness in there for GMs for running D&D and tailoring your game to exactly what you want it to be. So if you're new to the show, go check out the show notes over at starwalkerstudios.com. And in the links in the last episode 262, in which we were discussing Chapter 8 of the DMG, I have linked in those show notes all the episodes in the series, all of the DMG episodes, and all of the Player's Handbook episodes. I've been doing that series for, I think it's going on a couple years now, maybe even 3 years. I'm not even sure at this point. But we've been working through it for a while. A lot of great stuff in there, whether you're a new GM or a long time running GM, check it out. I think you'll dig it. So yeah, we'll be returning to that next week, but this week I'm going to be talking about the Essentials Kit. So real quickly before I get into that, I just want to let you know that I've recently released a new self-published D&D supplement called Adventures of Primordia, which is a bunch of player character options that I've come up with for my game, everything from cleric domains to spells to magic items, mundane equipment, backgrounds, all kinds of stuff. So, if you're looking for a way to help me out and help support the show, that's a great way. It's my third D&D supplement that I've published, and you can find out all about that on the website at starwalkerstudios.com. And a huge thank you to everyone who's purchased one or more of my supplements. I really, really appreciate it. And also a huge thank you to all the patrons. You all make this show possible. All right, so without further ado, let's proceed on to examining and exploring the Essentials Kit for D&D 5th edition. All right, so today I'm talking about the Essentials Kit, and the first order of business here, I think, is to address possible confusion I think will be out there for at least some people between this product, the Essentials Kit, and the starter set, which is also for D&D 5th edition. There's also a box, looks to be the same size. I haven't measured them, but to the naked eye, they look to be the same size. So the first question I want to answer is, what's the deal with these two products? Which do I want? Do I need both of them? That kind of thing. So from what I can tell from owning both of these and using both of these, they're kind of the same thing. So the Essentials Kit is the same thing as the starter set, which is to say it's serving the same purpose, which is a introduction to D&D where you can just buy one thing and have everything you need to get started. So if your question is, which of these do I get? Do I need both of them? No, you don't need both of them. If you're a new player or a new GM, or you're wanting to buy this for a friend or a relative to get them into the hobby, they don't need both of them. They both serve the same purpose. They're just two different versions of the same thing. Now, if you're going to ask which of them should I buy, I would definitely get the Essentials Kit. Now, I've seen some discussion online, and some people have said they think the adventure in the starter set is better than the one in the Essentials Kit. So the starter set has the adventure Lost Mines of Phandelver, which, if you're curious about that adventure, there are tons of actual plays of it on YouTube and in podcasts. And there are tons of blog posts about Lost Mines of Phandelver. It's an adventure that's been fairly well received overall. So there's lots of information about that adventure out there if you're curious. The Essentials Kit also has an adventure that comes with it called Dragon of Icespire Keep. Now, I'm not really going to sit here and try to tell you which of these adventures is, quote, better. There's definitely some differences in them. There are also a lot of similarities between the two adventures. I ran, I'd say, about the first half of Lost Mine of Phandelver myself, but I haven't run Dragon of Icespire Peak. I've only read through it, so I can't really say which is better because I've only run part of one of them. And I think to really know which is better, you'd have to run both of them or play both of them and kind of see what you think. They're both fine adventures. They're both good introductions to the game. So even if you're someone who believes the adventure in the starter set is better than the one in the Essentials Kit, I don't think it's so much so that it would warrant buying that product over the Essentials Kit. So my advice, if you're asking which of these should I get, I would definitely get the Essentials Kit. I think overall it's a better product. And we'll talk about why throughout this discussion and review today. So that's the one I would recommend if you're going to buy one of these, get the Essentials Kit. All right, so to start with, let's just get some of the basics out of the way. So just quickly, since I was just discussing kind of a comparison between the Essentials Kit and the starter set, just really quickly, what's in each as far as what are you getting with the Essentials Kit that you're not getting with the starter set. They both have a rule book that's included with them. The starter set, which again is the earlier product, has a 32-page rule book for playing characters 1 to 5th level. The Essentials Kit has a 64-page rule book for playing characters 1 to 6th level. So you're getting a little bit more there. They both have an introductory adventure. The Essentials Kit comes with a double-sided poster map, which the starter set does not. Comes with a Dungeon Master screen, which the starter set does not. Comes with 6 blank character sheets, which the starter set does not. Comes with 11 dice. The starter set only comes with 6 dice. And one of the awesome things about the Essentials Kit is it also comes with 81 cards describing magic items, sidekicks, and more, which the starter set does not. Now, the Essentials Kit, the cover price is $24.99 here in the US, while the starter set cover price is $19.99. So it is a little more expensive. Now, if I look on Amazon today, as of recording this, the starter set is priced at $11.99 and the Essentials Kit is priced at $16.78. So you're talking about a $4 or $5 difference depending where you buy it between the two. However, I think you'll see as we go through this today that the Essentials Kit is more than worth those extra few dollars. Now, one thing I was hoping to be able to tell you today is whether or not they're still making the starter set. And that I'm not sure. I mean, I can still buy it on Amazon, but I haven't seen anything stating one way or another if they're still going to be releasing it. It would definitely make sense to me that they won't be publishing the starter set anymore, and that the Essentials Kit will replace it, and that once the ones that they've already produced are gone, that's it. But I don't know that for sure. That's just speculation on my part. So it's possible in a few months or however long it takes that this whole discussion of which do I buy will become a moot point because you won't be able to get the starter set anymore. But again, I don't know that for sure. So I just kind of gave you a quick rundown of what is in the Essentials Kit, but let's go through it in a little more detail now. So first off, the first thing that you get is you get a set of dice. And I mean, dice are dice, right? The ones that came in the one that I got, I don't know if they're all the same or not. They're clear plastic dice, that what people call the gem dice. The ones I got are red in color. They have the rounded corners. Yeah, pretty standard. I mean, they look like, it doesn't say what the manufacturer of the dice is, but they look like if you get like the Chessex clear colored dice, that's what these look like. Pretty close to them, if not exactly the same. So what's included in this set, you get two 20-sided dice, which is awesome because you need those for rolling advantage and disadvantage. You get 4 6-sided dice, which is enough to roll your ability scores if you do it that way and you use one of the more traditional methods. Also, 4 6-sided is enough for low-level play, at least as far as your spells and whatnot that use 6-sideds. You get 1 12-sided die, 1 4-sided die, and then 2 10-sided dice for percentile, and one is labeled in 10, so has 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on. And the other one is single digits, 1 through 10 or 0 through 9, however you want to look at it. And it comes with 1 8-sided. Now, I love that this set has the 4 6-sided, which I feel like is a minimum that you need. I love that it has the 2 20-sided. Kind of wish it had 2 4-sided and 2 8-sided instead of just one of each of those, especially the 4-sided, because even at low level, if you're a spellcaster, you're probably going to be running into rolling more than 1 4-sided pretty early in the game. But I mean, unless they just give you a bunch of dice, it's never going to be enough dice for every situation. So, to avoid keeping the cost of this down and kind of give you the basic to start out, I think this is really great. I think it's really great that it has the 2 20-sideds and the 4 6-sideds in your percentile, and then one of the D12, D8, and D4. It's definitely, enough to get started. Now, of course, if you're buying this Essentials Kit to run D&D for your friends and you're only going to have this one small set of dice at the table and everyone's going to use it, probably after one session of that, you're going to have people wanting to buy their own dice. But that's okay. I mean, most people, if not everyone that plays this hobby, has their own dice anyway. I mean, that's kind of the first thing people want when they really get into the hobby is they want their own dice. So I think that's okay. And I've played, I haven't played D&D with one set of dice, but I've played the Fantasy Flight games, Star Wars games with just one set of dice at the table. And it's a bit of a pain, but it can be done. And yeah, so I guess before we go on with what's all in here, the reason I really like these products is this is a great introduction to the game. So especially, I don't know, if you're, maybe a teenager or younger and you want to get into D&D and you're maybe going to ask for D&D for your birthday or Christmas or something like that. This just makes it easier on your parents or your grandparents or whoever's going to buy it for you. You don't have to tell them which books you need in which order. You can just say, hey, get this box. This has everything I need. Also great if you're just looking for a gift for someone and you think they might get into D&D. this is this box is depending where you buy it, but it's going to cost you about half what you would play or what you would pay for the player's handbook. And although you can run D&D 5th edition with just the player's handbook, and I've talked about that way back when on the show, it can be done. The box is going to give you more for GMing, at least at the early levels of play, than the player's handbook would, and it's half the price. So you're kind of getting a little bit of the player's handbook, a little bit of the DMG, and a little bit of the monster manual for half the price of one of those core books. So, instead of having to buy one or even three $50 books, you just get this one $25 box, and it's got everything to get you started. So I think it's really great for someone like that. Obviously, if you're someone who's already a player and maybe you're switching over to D&D from another game or from another edition, you're going to want to just buy the books. You're going to save money in the long run because you're going to want those books eventually anyway, if only when you reach higher than 6th level, because that's where you're going to run out of material from the Essentials Kit. So, part of evaluating this product is realizing who it's for, and it's for someone wanting to dip their toe into the hobby. It's not for someone, who's already hardcore into it. They're going to want to get the DMG, the player's handbook, and the monster manual, not this. So I think as long as we keep that in mind, we're golden. So yeah, let's get back to what's in here. So we've got the dice. We've got our adventure book, which I'll go into a bit more detail later. Dragon of Icespire Peak. Let's just see what the page count is on this. That's 64 pages for that. We've got the Essentials Kit Rulebook, which is going to have rules for running the game, at least up to 6th level. 64 pages in that. And now we start getting into what really makes this product just an improvement on the starter set, just hands down. I don't think many people are going to argue with this. I think the only argument about this being an improvement is if you're someone who just thinks that or Lost Mines of Phandelver was a phenomenal adventure and this adventure isn't as good. That's the only argument I think that can be made for the starter set being equal or better to the Essentials Kit. And again, my personal opinion, even if Lost Mine of Phandelver is a better adventure, which I'm not sure that I agree with, it's not that much better to be worth not getting all these other cool things that you get in the Essentials Kit. So the first thing that you get is you get initiative cards. Now, all these cards that come in this kit are on 8.5 by 11 inch cardstock. So about the size of, or I'm assuming that's the size. It looks like the size of a normal piece of paper here in the US, 8.5 by 11 inches. And it's cardstock with these cards printed on it. And there are 9 cards per sheet. So 3 by 3, 3 rows of 3 or 3 columns of 3, however you want to think about it. And they're perforated. So you take one of these sheets, you tear the perforations, and you've got 9 cards. So first we've got initiative cards. So we have 9 initiative cards, and they're just simply cards with a number from 1 to 9 on them. So these you can use for tracking initiative. You can, when people roll initiative, you can give these cards out to the players in the turn order to track that. Personally, I don't find that terribly useful. It's definitely better than nothing. But I would always recommend my note card method, which I've talked about many times on the show. But it's cool that it includes this, especially, this is really going with the idea of, let's say it's a rainy Sunday afternoon and you just want to play a game. You go out and you buy this, and everything you need to play D&D is in this box except a pencil. I almost feel like they should have just thrown a pencil in just so that they could say this is literally everything you need to play. So you've even got initiative tracking cards in here for that. All right, next, and this is by itself, I think this would make the Essentials Kit better than the starter set. Next, we have condition cards. So again, same thing. These are on cardstock, 9 per sheet, perforated. You've got to tear them apart. yourself. However, these have all the conditions in the game. So things like deafened, charmed, blinded, incapacitated, grappled, frightened, invisible, paralyzed, petrified, unconscious, stunned, poisoned, prone, restrained. So on one side of the card, it has the name of the condition along with kind of an illustration of that condition. So for instance, for deafened, it has an illustration of a gnome with a ear trumpet in his ear. And then on the back of the card, it has the mechanics for the conditions. This is something that every DM wants. Even if you are someone who's been running the game forever like me, I would love to have these condition cards to use in my game to just, if a player character gets blinded, I just hand the player the blinded card, has all the mechanics on there and helps them remember that they're blinded. And yeah, it's a lot simpler than having to look up the conditions in the appendix of the player's handbook. And again, is a reminder to the player that they have that condition. So in addition to those conditions, we also have 3 combat cards, which these on the back give combat step-by-step. So, step 1, determine surprise. Step 2, establish positions. Step 3, roll initiative. Step 4, take turns. Step 5, begin the next round. And it has explanations of each of those. So there are 3 of those. Now, honestly, I see these as more useful for the GM. So you really only need 1, I think. But this is a nice little, thing for the GM to have to help you remember kind of how to handle a turn if you're really new to running the game. But you could give 1 or 2 or 3 of these out to players too, if you wanted to. And then we also have a magic and charm card. And this is kind of weird because it has Charm of the Storm, which is you become charged with the power of the storm to the extent that tiny sparks crackle in your eyes. You can cast a lightning bolt spell, 3rd level version, as an action. Once used 3 times, a charm vanishes from you. So charms are a magical gift characters can receive that are described in the Dungeon Master's Guide. And this is one of quite a few possible charms that are given in the Dungeon Master's Guide. So kind of strange to just give you one of these. I mean, obviously they just needed something to do with another card. I'm not really sure why they didn't just give us one of the combat step-by-step cards, which again, really is only the GM needs that. And then we could have had 2 different charms and had a total of 3 charms. Or why they didn't just spring for another sheet of card stock so they could have more than 1 charm. They could have had 10 or 12. So that's kind of weird. I'm guessing, again, I haven't run the adventure, but I'm guessing this is a charm that's specifically used in the adventure, which then would make more sense, but would have been nice to have more than just 1 charm card. But that aside, these condition cards are awesome and something that you will use even long after you've gotten your player's handbook and your DMG and your monster manual and you're not using the Essentials Kit anymore. You'll probably still be using these condition cards. Super, super handy and useful. Next, we have magic item cards. And so these cards are the same kind of thing. On one side, it just says magic item. And on the other side, it has one of the magic items found in the adventure and a description and mechanics for that magic item. So for instance, we have one here for a +1 longbow, weapon longbow uncommon. This magic longbow was crafted by elves. You have a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with this weapon. Also has the minor property of while wielding the longbow, you can use an action to learn which way is north. So a lot of these do have some kind of a minor property or something. Okay, I take that back. A few of them have a minor property. It looks like basically just your kind of generic +1 items tend to have a minor property to make them a little more interesting. But these are really cool. Something, again, I wish every adventurer had these. So when a player character gets a magic item, you can just give them the card. And now they have, or once they've identified it, you can give them the card. They know what the item does. They don't have to worry about looking it up in a book or copying down what you read to them on their character sheet or however you normally handle this. You just give them the card and they're good to go. So that's awesome. Really love that. Next, we have some NPC cards. These are pretty cool too. So these are NPCs in the adventure that comes with the Essentials Kit. On one side, we have an illustration of the NPCs. I will just say not terrible illustrations, but not great either, but definitely better than nothing. And then on the other side of the card, we have the NPC's name, their race, and their class or NPC class, like human spellcaster or human expert or Lightfoot halfling warrior. We have a description, personality, ideal, bond, flaw. So their personality archetypes or whatever you call them for each of those. So yeah, these are useful. Oh, these are actually the sidekick cards. So sidekicks are just basically NPCs included with this that can be used if you don't have a lot of players and you want more characters in the group. These sidekick NPCs are provided to fill out your group with NPCs that go on the adventure. So I guess that's what these cards are for, because they all say sidekick on the bottom. So would have been great to have the big NPCs in the adventure too, but the sidekicks are really what you're going to want, I guess. But there's no stats on these. It's just personality stuff. And finally, we have a sheet of quest cards, and these are just the quests from the adventure. So when the PCs get a certain quest, you can give them a card that tells them the quest and tells them what the reward is. So we'll talk about this more when we get into the actual adventure, but the adventure is very much structured like an adventure from a video game, like an MMO RPG or just a regular RPG video game. It's very much set up like that with a quest hub and lots of little side quests and story quests, and it's very much set up on that, which always kind of cracks me up because the early RPGs and MMOs were very much copying from and taking inspiration from D&D, and now we've come around full circle, and now D&D is taking inspiration from the video games. So that's kind of interesting. All right, next we do get a poster map. It's pretty small as far as poster maps go, but it's bigger than an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. On one side of the map, we have the area of the Sword Coast where this adventure takes place, which, by the way, it does take place in the town or village, I can't remember, of Phandelver, which is the same location that the starter set adventure takes place in. So this map has Neverwinter Wood. Let's see, Neverwinter's on here. Some other Phandalin. Yeah, so it's not a huge area. It's just the area right around Phandalin. It includes all of Neverwinter Wood, Mount Hotenow. So it cracks me up. And then on the back side of the map, we have an actual map of Phandelver or Phandalin itself. So that's cool. And again, something that the starter set didn't have. So pretty nice. Then we have a GM screen, which this is super cool. Now, this is not quite as nice as the GM screen that you buy separately. It's just on kind of cardstock, where the actual GM screen that you get is a little bit heavier cardboard, and it's a little smaller. But it's a nice little screen, especially, I mean, to get this in the Essentials Kit is awesome. So just to tell you what's on here, we have the little diagram of the different areas of effect: line, cone, cube, sphere, cylinder. Kind of useless, actually. It'd be nice if we had like the Pathfinder one where it shows them on a grid. So you can see the show notes of the recent episode where we talked about that. I actually put that image in the show notes. You can check that out. But this, I guess, if you don't know what a line, cone, cube, sphere, or cylinder is, this might be useful to you, but otherwise not so much, other than it shows like the point of origin and then how that relates to the shape. But again, it's pretty obvious stuff unless like you've never had geometry or math before. So kind of useless, but there you go. The rest of the stuff on the screen is more useful, I promise. We have actions in combat. So we've got attack, cast a spell, dash, disengage, dodge, help, hide, ready, search, use a magic item, use an object, use a special ability. So again, that'll be useful for new GMs. We've got rules for the long jump, the high jump, rules for concentration for spells, which will be handy to have. Things you can do on your turn. We've got our conditions on here again. Super nice to have all the conditions explained. We've got your basic DCs, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and what those relate to. Very easy, moderate, hard, very hard, and nearly impossible, respectively. We've got some tracking DCs for you. The damage by severity and level chart, which Brett and I talked about in a recent episode. We both really like that for coming up with damage for things on the fly, whether it's a trap or a spell or a monster ability or whatever. We've got object armor class here, which is very useful. Object hit points, skills and associated abilities. So again, for very new GMs, this is really helpful. Acrobatics goes with dexterity and things like that. We've got a food, drink, and lodging cost chart, a services chart. So transportation, hiring a hireling, a messenger, tolls, things like that. We've got our travel pace chart, effects for obscured areas chart, encounter distance chart, which again is something that's not actually in the DMG and should be very useful. So for instance, if you are in a forest, swamp, or woodland, you can roll 2d8 times 10 feet to see how far away an encounter is that you want to run. Audible distance chart, visibility outdoors chart, cover chart, and light source chart. Also, we have a diagram showing the relative sizes between tiny, small, medium, large, huge, and gargantuan, along with a kind of a what's the word? A scale to show kind of the height of these different things. And then on the other side of the screen is an illustration, hopefully an illustration from the adventure, and it looks like it is. So yeah, I think honestly, as far as what's on the screen, it might even be a better screen than the regular screen that you buy for 5th edition. So that is pretty sweet. And then also some blank character sheets. And these are on, pretty nice paper, kind of textured paper, more like parchment than regular, copy or printer paper. And yeah, these are double-sided character sheets, get you started. So yeah, there's literally everything you need to play the game in here except a pencil. So you got to bring your own pencil or God forbid a pen. But other than that, everything is in here that you need, which is pretty awesome. And then finally, we have a cardboard box, which comes broken down, and you can, fold it up yourself to hold all of those cards. So you can put this little box together and you can put all your cards in there and keep them in good condition. So that's awesome too. And then finally, the last thing in here is the rule book and the adventure. So that's what we'll talk about next. Now, the rule book and the adventure, as far as just the materials, the physical object that is the rule book and the adventure, really great. I mean, especially, they're not hardback or anything, but for what they are, they seem to be really well bound, really well made, really well put together. My only complaint with these is that the paper is super glossy, like even beyond magazine glossy, which actually I'm not sure why they make them glossy like that. But makes them hard to read. You got to angle it just right, especially if you have overhead lights to be able to read it. So it's kind of a pain, going to lead to more eye strain on your part trying to read these. Even where, I find the actual books, like the Player's Handbook, to be a little too glossy for that reason, but these are way worse. But honestly, that's my only real criticism, is the ridiculous level of gloss on these pages. I don't know why Wizards thinks that's a good thing. So let's look at the rule book first. We have kind of an overview of gameplay. This is assuming you know nothing about D&D or how to play or how to run it. So it has all your basic information about, the role of the DM, the role of the players, the core rules, adjudicating the rules, all that kind of stuff. Then we go into character creation, choosing a race, choosing a class, proficiency bonus, ability scores, All that stuff is here. Your height and weight table. It's got your experience table for levels 1 to 6. That's as high as it goes. As far as races included, we have dwarf, elf, halfling, and human. So similar to the basic rules, which you can get for free, we have just those 4 basic races. Let me look. I don't think it even includes. It does. So it does include some sub races. So the dwarf includes hill dwarf and mountain dwarf. The elf includes high elf and wood elf. The halfling includes stout and lightfoot halfling. And then humans, there's only one type of human. As far as classes that are included, we have the bard, the cleric. Oh, and as far as bard, we have College of Lore and College of Valor. Again, all these things only go up to 6th level, though, as far as what information you're given. Cleric. Let's see. We have, which domains do we have? We have life domain and war domain. Those are probably the best 2. Those are the ones I'd pick. If I were going to pick two domains to give a new player access to, those would be the 2 I'd pick. Fighter. I'm going to guess we're going to have champion and battle master. Let's see if I'm right. Oh, I was wrong. We have Eldritch Knight and champion. That's an interesting choice, but I mean, I get using Eldritch Knight for people that want to play a fighter with some magic, but the Eldritch Knight kind of sucks. The Battle Master is a way better character to play, I feel like. But it's also, I don't know. Personally, I would have picked either Battle Master and Champion or Battle Master and Eldritch Knight. And I probably would have gone with Battle Master and Champion because Champion's just simple. It's not a great subclass, but for a brand new player, just want to play a fighter and hack and slash things, it's great for that. And then for a player that wants to dig in a little deeper, you got the Battle Master. But they did Eldritch Knight. Whatever. We've got the Rogue. And as far as our Rogue subclasses, we get the Arcane Trickster and the Thief. Again, personally, I would have picked Thief and Assassin, but that's just me. Wizard is also included. And our schools, we get Evocation and Transmutation. So that's fine. I mean, Evocation is a definite pick. And I think we could argue till the cows come home about what the second one would be. Probably just depends on what your personal favorite is. But Transmutation's a good one. That works for me. And then we have some backgrounds included as well. Backgrounds that are in here. We have the Acolyte, Criminal, Entertainer, Sage, Soldier. As I flip through this, that's it. So yeah, again, kind of like the basic rules, you're not getting all the classes, you're not getting all the races, you're not getting all the backgrounds, but for what this product is and to give you something to get started with it, this is great. And I think, I personally disagree with a few of the subclass choices, but it's great. They're fine. And I mean, honestly, I think I'll defer to Wizards' expertise in this. I'm sure they know much better than I do what are the good subclasses to give people to start with. So then next we go into playing the game, advantage and disadvantage, saving throws, ability checks, contests, skills, working together, strength checks, dexterity checks. And we go into all the abilities and how those different checks work. The environment, travel, types of movement, falling, suffocating, vision and light, interacting with objects. So, a lot of your basic mechanics and systems are in here. Social interaction, ability checks, resting, short rest, long rest, combat. We've got the order of combat, surprise, initiative, your turn, reactions, movement and position, breaking up your move, difficult terrain, being prone, moving around other characters, flying movement. We've got all your actions in combat explained, how to make an attack, cover, ranged attacks, melee attacks, shoving, damage and healing, mounted combat, underwater combat, So yeah, as far as your systems and kind of your DM stuff, they definitely got you covered here, especially just to get you to level 6. Next, we have equipment. We've got coinage explained, selling treasure, and then we've got your armor table. It looks like the full armor table from the PHB. Weapons, again, looks like the entire weapon table from the PHB. Adventuring gear table, again, looks like the entire table from the PHB. We have explanation of the different equipment packs and what's in them, all your special items. Next, we go into mounts and services. Again, everything that's in the PHB, it looks like, is in here as far as that stuff. Magic items. And now we have some actual magic items. And, this isn't all the items in the DMG, but it's all the items in the included adventure. And it's 2 pages of items and will be plenty to get you to 6th level, I think. All right, next we have spells. So we have our discussion of how magic and casting spells work in various aspects of a spell, like casting time, range, components, duration, things like that. And then we have our spell descriptions. And let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10 pages of spells, which again, for just, the first 6 levels of play is plenty, I think. And then we have your sidekicks. So again, the sidekicks are NPCs that can adventure with the player characters for if you have a smaller group. And we've got a spellcaster, an expert, and a warrior. And then finally, the last page, we have advancement for the sidekicks. So it gives advancement for these 3 NPCs up to 6th level so that they can kind of advance with the player characters. Because again, the idea is that they're part of the party. And then another thing that's awesome about this, I love this. I mean, you can tell this product was made by people who actually run the game. Because remember, we had condition cards, right? That you can give the players and help them remember what conditions they have and what the mechanics of those conditions are. Remember, we also have the conditions on the DM screen that's given for the DM to use. We also have the conditions explained within the pages of this book. And then finally, on the back cover of the rule book, we have all the conditions again. So plenty of places to have the conditions at your fingertips when you need them, which is awesome. I think that's fine. Someone might say, oh, did we really need the conditions in 4 different places? And I think, yeah, we do. Any more than that might have been excessive. But I like that they're actually in the book where they would logically be if you're kind of reading through the book. I love that they're on the back cover of this book, so you can find them really fast while you're running the game. Or, you could show this to a player character maybe. And I love the cards for the player characters. And then it's also on the screen. So yeah. And I guess, maybe the reasoning for why is it on the back of this book and on the screen? Because you might say, well, you don't need both of those, is maybe as a GM, you don't use a screen. So, like for instance, when I run online, I don't obviously use the GM screen because what would be the point? But I often have my screen with me just because it's an easy way to find certain tables and whatnot. It's easier just to grab the screen and look at it there than to look it up in the PHB or the DMG. So if you're a GM like that, at least for the conditions, it might be easier just to look on the back of this book than on the screen if you're not actually using the screen as a screen. All right. So the final thing in this book or in this box, is the actual adventure. The adventure is called Dragon of Icespire Peak. And on the back of this book is a map key for the poster map. And also, I'm sure the maps that are in the actual book with a legend of what the different symbols mean, like an altar or an anvil or barrels or whatever. All right, so let's look at this adventure book. So we start out with an overview, not so much of the adventure, we have that a little later, but just the role of the Dungeon Master and kind of tips for running an adventure and things like that. And so like the starter set, this is assuming that you're brand new to DMing. So there's a lot of kind of hand holding, and not in a bad way, throughout this adventure, kind of explaining things as you go, which is awesome. We have some discussion of the Forgotten Realms and specifically the area of the Sword Coast where this is taking place. Some brief descriptions of some of the things nearby. We have next discussion of character creation and, lists the different options from the other book that players have for making characters. Has discussions of what to do if you only have one player, kind of how to prepare for the adventure, that kind of stuff. And then we have the actual adventure background. Again, this is taking place in Phandalin. So there's description of Phandalin. You've got a table of 6 different kind of bits of gossip player characters can hear throughout the town. And then we have quests. So this adventure is structured a little differently in some ways than Lost Mines of Phandelver. Lost Mines of Phandelver starts out with kind of a linear, you could call it a quest, but it starts out with the player characters on a very, this is what you're doing. They're guarding a caravan, traveling from A to B. And then they, they have an adventure on the way. They end up in Phandalin. And then from that point on, the adventures are very similar in that Phandalin is kind of a quest hub where you can get your story quest as well as various side quests. And it's a little open-ended as far as player characters can choose which side quests they want to do or not, and what order they want to do them, and all that good stuff. So very much structured like a game of EverQuest or WoW or, insert The Witcher, insert your favorite RPG video game here. Very much set up like that. So the big bad in this adventure, which I don't think I'm spoiling anything because it's on the cover of the Essentials Kit box, is a white dragon. Now, this is one of the few criticisms I have of this product. And other than the crazy glossy pages, really all of my criticisms of this product are of the adventure itself. I think otherwise it's an excellent product and I don't really have anything bad to say about it other than the glossy pages. I think it's awesome and a great value for your money. The adventure, I do have some criticisms of, but in fairness, these are criticisms that I would make for most of the 5th edition adventures and some of them for all of them. So it's more of kind of how 5th edition adventures are done and issues I personally have with that, as opposed to necessarily this specific adventure. However, when talking about this adventure, the big bad's a white dragon, a young white dragon. I mean, how many adventures now have we had player characters fighting a white dragon really early in the adventure? Storm King's Thunder, I think. I'm trying to remember. I don't have all my books up here. Tyranny of Dragons, I believe they fought a white dragon fairly early on. I just feel like the white dragon is so overused in 5th edition. I mean, I get it. It's the weakest dragon. And for some reason you want to throw a dragon at really low level characters and have them fight it. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of that. I think dragons are one of the most epic monsters in the game. I mean, the game is named after them. So I think throwing a weak ass dragon at your like low level characters is kind of the opposite of what you want to do. It kind of takes all the mystique and scariness of dragons away because it's like, well, dragons can't be that bad. We killed one at 3rd level, so why you'd want to use a wormling or young white dragon and throw it at your low level character? I don't know. Unless it's a one shot and this is the only D&D they're going to play and you want them to have a dragon, which is maybe what Wizards was thinking. Which in that case, yeah, I can go with it. But it's like, man, couldn't you guys have picked a different dragon? I mean, we have so many versions of low-powered white dragon encounters in the 5th edition already. Couldn't you have used a green dragon or a red dragon and maybe, nerfed it a little bit or something? I don't know. So I'm not super stoked about the white dragon. I'm also not super stoked just with the video game kind of setup of this adventure. Personally, I think they kind of dropped the ball here because, again, keeping in mind that this product is for brand new players and brand new GMs, I think giving them something this sandboxy is a mistake. I think, a great way or a great adventure for that kind of thing is more linear. Or if you want to have it be slightly less linear, give them a good dungeon where there's multiple ways through the dungeon. But just giving them a quest hub with all these different quests, I don't think it's a great way to introduce new players and GMs to the game. For one thing, a lot of times, even experienced players, when they're given a sandbox game, especially at the very beginning of the campaign, there's kind of, you've got like analysis paralysis. They're like, well, there's 12 different things we could do and no clear thing pointing us to do this thing first. What do we do? And you spend half the session trying to decide what you're going to do. Also for the GM, for a brand new DM, give them a linear adventure to run, for God's sake. I mean, now the poor DM has to prepare for all these quests because they don't know which one they're going to pick, or they're going to have to run one of these quests on the fly, which isn't a great way for a new GM to cut their teeth, I don't think. So I'm kind of mystified at this, other than let's make it like a video game because that's what people can relate to. Yeah, I get that as like the first idea that came into your head, but I think after you thought about it for a little bit and been like, well, this isn't a video game. This is D&D, tabletop role-playing game. What works great for a video game maybe doesn't work great for this. And I think they would have been better off with a linear adventure, especially for the GMs to prepare for. And especially starting it out this sandboxy. At least Lost Mine of Phandelver, you had a little linear bit at the beginning before you got to the quest hub. But I would even argue Lost Mines of Phandelver wasn't great for new DMs because it was so sandboxy. And in that way, I think it was overrated a bit. All right. But all that aside, we're given Phandelver as a quest hub. And then from then on are the various quests. And basically, this is all pretty much all, I think, location-based stuff. So every quest involves the player characters going to a different location. And then we have all the locations in this book in alphabetical order, which again, I think it would have been made more sense to put them in level order, in the order that the player characters will probably do them. But I get why they did alphabetical order. And maybe that's the way to go. I don't know. You'd have to try it both ways and see, I guess. But it does, one thing that is missing in this is it doesn't have the flow chart for the adventure, which why on earth wouldn't you put a flow chart in this adventure for new GMs? Hello, wizards. Are you sleeping at the wheel here or what? Yeah, a flow chart would have been super helpful, especially since the chapters aren't in the order that you're going to do them in. So if you're trying to prepare for this and you're trying to figure out what's the first of these adventures they're probably going to do, you have to flip through each one and look at the suggested levels in the first paragraph to figure that out because there's no flowchart. So yeah, that's a kind of a glaring omission. So we have some kind of dungeony stuff. It's all location based. Some of it's more wilderness, but I mean, every one of these adventures or little quests has a gridded map for it. So it's all location based stuff. I mean, I've read through this. I mean, it's kind of ho-hum, but I feel like all the 5th edition adventures, with the caveat of parts of Curse of Strahd are not this way. But other than that, they're all pretty ho-hum and kind of all the same in a lot of ways. So yeah, I mean, I don't really want to say much more about the adventure because I don't want to spoil it in case you're listening to this and you're going to run it or play it. I mean, it's not terrible. It's not great. It's a mediocre adventure. But considering the value that you get with all the other stuff you get with this, the dice, the map, the DM screen, the condition cards, I feel like that makes up for the adventure not being fantastic. And, I mean, a lot of an adventure is what you make of it too. And I guess maybe a silver lining to this is that maybe this will lead to you as a brand new GM reading this and being like, this is okay, but kind of underwhelming. What can I do to make it better? So if it gets you in that habit right away, that's a good thing, because it's going to be rare that you're going to find a published adventure for any game that's just going to be awesome and you're just going to run it out of the box as is. Almost always, you're going to want to cut out encounters that are just filler or boring or not going to be interesting to your players, or adjust difficulties of things up and down, or tailor it more to your group, So that's a good habit to get into from the very beginning. And so maybe giving you kind of a lackluster adventure will encourage you to do that. But yeah, it's pretty open ended. You have Phandalin, the quest hub. You have kind of the story quest line that's going to ultimately lead to a showdown with the white dragon, and then various side quests that have you doing various things for NPCs in the village. So then after the adventure at the very end, we have kind of our monsters. So this is kind of the monster manual part of the box. And, really quickly, because there's not that many of them, I'll go through all the monsters that are used. And, as a DM myself, when I'm looking at an adventure, if I just want to really quickly just get a bird's eye view of what this adventure is and am I at all interested in it, I'll just scan through all the monsters that it uses to see if those look interesting to me. So I think for a really quick and dirty look at what's this adventure about, that's a great start. So let's go through what's in here. So we have an Anchorite of Talos. So this is a half-orc NPC monster person. I guess that's another thing to point out. Maybe it's probably obvious, but this is set in the Forgotten Realms. It uses Forgotten Realms gods. So if you're not running into realms, you're going to have to convert it to your own setting, whatever that is. And personally, I find that annoying because I don't know, the realms are so just ridiculous in a way that it's harder to convert them to another setting. I feel like, as opposed to if they use, say, Greyhawk or even Kryn, but that's just my opinion. I've never been a huge fan of the realms. But anyway, we've got the Ankeg. We have the Banshee, Needle Blight, Twig Blight, Vine Blight. Got to use the blights. Carrion Crawler, Boar, Centaur, Commoner, Cow. Some NPCs: Ghoul, Giant Crab, Giant Rat, Giant Spider, Harpy, Hunter Shark, Invisible Stalker, Manticore, Mimic, Ochre Jelly, Ogre, Orc, Riding Horse, Sturge, some more NPCs, Will-O-Wisp, Were-Rat, and a young white dragon. So actually not a ton of monsters, considering this takes you from level 1 to 6. Definitely could have used more monsters. But yeah, so that's basically what's in the adventure. All right, so I've kind of gone through this piece by piece, told you everything that's in here, kind of what I thought of it. Again, I didn't go super deep in the adventure, partly because I haven't run it or played it, and partly because I don't want to spoil it for you. So if you're really curious about knowing more about the adventure, I'm sure you can find plenty of blog posts or YouTube videos or whatever about the adventure specifically, which again is called Dragon of Ice Spire Peak, if you want to find that. But honestly, I don't think the adventure is really the make or break it part of this product anyway. I mean, unless you're going to create your own adventure or use an adventure from a third-party publisher, or use an adventure from another game or another edition of D&D, unless you're going to do one of those things, you're going to be buying a official 5th edition adventure. And honestly, the criticisms that I had of this adventure can be leveled at all of the 5th edition adventures. So, comparing this adventure with other published 5th edition adventures, it's not like super great or super terrible. It's right in the middle with most of them. So, for me personally, whether or not to buy this, it's not really about the adventure anyway. If I want a better adventure, I'm either going to come up with my own adventure, or I'm going to modify this adventure, or maybe use another adventure for 5th edition I like better. Or maybe I know of a third-party publisher that makes awesome adventures, or I know of a great adventure from a previous edition, or whatever. So for me, and I think for a lot of you, what's really going to be the decision point of whether or not to get this is all the other stuff. How good of a job does this do at being the only thing you need to get started at D&D? And I think it does a great job at that. I think it does an even better job than the starter set did. And the starter set has been very well received by pretty much everyone. I've not really seen serious criticisms of the starter set other than the adventure itself, which, I mean, that's kind of its own can of worms. So I think this is very much an upgrade of the starter set. We're getting condition cards and a DM screen and initiative tracking cards and magic item cards, all of which are things that we didn't get before. We're getting more dice. So you've got enough dice to do advantage and disadvantage and roll up characters and all that good stuff. Now, the one thing that the starter set had that this one doesn't is the starter set came with pre-generated characters, where this one comes with blank character sheets. But honestly, I still think the Essentials Kit is better, because if players want to make their own character sheets, you've got some nice character sheets for them to use. And if you want to use pre-gens, you can find the pre-gens on Wizards website for free anyway, and you can download those and print those off anyway. So you can still get those, and there's going to be more to choose from there anyway than you got in the starter set. Or even better, as a DM, you could make your own pre-gens, which is really what I would recommend you do. I've always wanted to do that, and I only recently, I take that back. When I ran characters, or when I ran Numenera at Gen Con, I think I made my own pre-gens. Or maybe, no, I think I used published ones. Never mind. So I just started running a Numenera campaign, and I made my own pre-gens for that. Because, I mean, we just all have our own different ways of making characters, and I've never been 100% happy with published pre-gens. So I made my own. So I highly recommend that if you have the inclination and the time to make your own pre-gens. But I guess as a brand new DM, you're probably not going to do that. So if that's you, go to Wizards website, search for the pre-gens, and just use those. So yeah, I think this is a hands down improvement on the starter set. I'm not knocking the starter set at all. I mean, it's been out for years. And sure, after years of seeing how that product did and getting feedback on the product, it's only natural that they figured out some ways to improve it and give new DMs more of what they need for just a few more dollars, without having to take anything important away. So again, I suspect that the starter set's they're gonna stop printing those and just do the Essentials Kit. I mean, I think they should do that, because otherwise there's going to be confusion on which of these do I get. And I think that, with the possible exception of maybe the starter set's adventure is better, I think a DM that gets the starter set for whatever reason instead of the Essentials Kit is ultimately going to be disappointed when they realize all the cool stuff like the GM screen and the conditions cards and the extra dice that they would have gotten in the Essentials Kit that they didn't get because they got the starter set. So I think it would really be great if they just made the Essentials Kit, but I'm not sure about if that's the case. So if you have it from a legitimate source, what's going on with that, let me know and I can pass it along to the other listeners. So at the end of my reviews, I like to try to give a buy or don't buy. And, this is very much this product is made for a very specific kind of person. And if you're that person, then I'd say you should get it. So if you're a brand new player, well, probably a brand new GM, if you're a brand new player, you don't really need this. Really, only one person at the table needs this, and it's the person who's going to run the game. So if you're wanting to get into RPGs, wanting to get into D&D, and you're totally new, this will be great for you. If you're more experienced, then you're probably better off getting the various things you need separately. Unless, listening to me talk about what's in this, you're like, I want all of that. And in which case, you can get it. And even the rule book, which, if you have the DMG and the monster manual and the player's handbook, the rule book's kind of redundant. It is something like if you're running for a new player that you can let them use at the table, or even let them borrow or even keep, because it's going to have the basics of character creation and the basics of the mechanics of the game, at least up to 6th level. So, if you've got some new players at the table that don't have any of the books and you're running at 6th level or below, you can let them use that book so they're not constantly borrowing your books. So you can have those where you need them with you behind the screen. So, yeah, I think it's a great product. And I think Wizards did a really great job of coming up with a good entry-level product for someone who just kind of wants to dip their toe into D&D without having to shell out $150 for core books, and see if they like it, get some of their friends playing with them, and go from there. And it's also great, again, for someone who wants to give the gift of D&D to someone else. All right, well, I think it's about time to wrap up episode 263 of Game Master's Journey. If you'd like to get a hold of me and give me any comments or feedback, you can shoot me an email at gamemastersjourney@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at LexStarWalker, and I have a voicemail you can call and leave a message. That's 951-GMJ-LEX1, 951-465-5391. And finally, please join our community on MeWe and Discord. It's a great place to connect not only with myself, but with other listener GMs. So if you have any comments, questions, or feedback, I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy the show and you'd like to help support the show and what I'm doing, a great way to do so is to check out and purchase one or more of my D&D supplements. You can find those at starwalkerstudios.com. And another great way to support the show is to become a patron. Patrons get some cool perks, including their own private RSS feed, which includes all 263 episodes of Game Master's Journey and all 70 odd episodes of GM Intrusions. The public feed only has 100 episodes in it due to limitations of my hosting provider, but patrons get their own feed that has everything in it. So yeah, super cool. So huge thank you again to everyone who's purchased my supplements and to all the patrons. I could not and would not do this without you. Thank you so much. So I hope that you have a chance to play your favorite RPG this week. I hope you have a chance to run your favorite RPG. I'll be back soon with another episode of Game Master's Journey. Until then, game on.
This has been a Starwalker Studios production, your source for quality gaming and hobby podcasts.
This episode's music, courtesy of Cloudwalker, Transboy, Renfield, Stanko, and Ish. See the show notes for more details at starwalkerstudios.com/Game Master's Journey.